It was a busy Saturday afternoon at the city mall, where the air smelled faintly of coffee and fresh pretzels, and the soft mall music blended with the chatter of shoppers. Ethan Ward, a single father with kind eyes and a weary smile, walked beside his 10-year-old daughter, Maya, who clutched his hand excitedly as they browsed the jewelry section for a small birthday gift she had been patiently waiting months for. Just as Maya pointed towards a delicate silver pendant, a sharp voice sliced through the calm. Heads turned. At the center of a growing crowd sat a frail girl in a wheelchair, tears streaming silently down her pale cheeks. The store manager, Mr. Lewis, stood rigidly in front of her, waving a silver bracelet as if it were a smoking gun. "You stole this. It was found in your lap," he shouted, his voice echoing off the store's glass walls. The girl shook her head desperately, her voice trembling. I didn't, it fell, please, I didn't steal it." But her words dissolved into the murmur of judgmental whispers. Strangers took out their phones, recording, gossiping, no one stepping forward, no one questioning the accusation. Ethan's heart tightened. He recognized that look, the helplessness of someone being unheard. With a steady breath, he stepped through the crowd and stood between the manager and the girl. "That's enough," he said firmly, his voice calm but unshakable. "If you're so sure she stole it, check the security cameras before humiliating her like this." Mr. Lewis scoffed but gestured to security to review the footage. Minutes stretched like hours. Then a guard returned, face pale. The footage showed the truth. The bracelet had slipped from the counter when the girl accidentally brushed it while trying to reach for her wallet. She never took it. Silence swept across the crowd, shame flickering in their eyes. The harshness faded, replaced by uneasy guilt. The girl's shoulders shook as more tears fell, not from fear but from the relief that, finally, someone had stood up for her. Ethan knelt beside her and asked gently, "Are you okay?" She could barely nod, but softly whispered, "Thank you, no one ever defends me." And in that moment, kindness outshone every accusing gaze around them. Ethan gently wheeled the trembling girl out of the store, away from curious eyes and whispered judgments, toward the quieter part of the mall near the fountain where water softly trickled under the afternoon light. Maya followed silently, her young face full of concern rather than fear. The girl wiped her tears with the back of her shaky hand and whispered, "My name is Clara. Clara Jennings." Ethan knelt so his eyes were level with hers, and with a kindness she hadn't seen in a long time, he asked if she wanted to talk. Clara hesitated, then nodded faintly. She told them that she was 17, and 2 years ago, a terrible car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her mother had been her only support, but she passed away last winter after a long illness. Since then, Clara had been living in a small community shelter while trying to finish high school. She rarely spoke to anyone, not because she didn't want to, but because she was tired of people either pitying her or assuming she was a burden. As she spoke, her voice cracked in places, yet she tried to remain composed, wiping away tears quickly as if afraid they, too, would be judged. Ethan's heart ached, and Maya gently offered her half of the warm pretzel she was holding. Clara stared at it for a moment before accepting with a soft, grateful smile, the first one Ethan had seen from her. Just then, Ethan noticed a man standing not too far away, dressed in a dark tailored suit, holding a worn photograph in his trembling hands, his eyes searching anxiously through the mall crowd. His expression was a mixture of panic and regret, like someone desperately trying to find something he had lost long ago. Clara didn't notice him yet. She was staring at the water in the fountain, her voice barely above a whisper as she said, "People see the chair before they see me." Ethan placed a comforting hand on the wheelchair handle and said softly, "Not everyone. Some people see the person first." Little did they know, the man in the suit had finally found who he was looking for, his daughter. And with one more step forward, their lives were about to change forever. Clara's eyes were still focused on the gentle ripples in the fountain when Ethan noticed the man in the dark suit slowly approaching, his steps hesitant as though he were afraid the moment might shatter if he moved too quickly. The man's face was pale, his eyes glossy with unshed tears, and before either Ethan or Maya could say a word, Clara turned her head slightly, and froze. Her lips parted, breath caught in her throat. "Dad," she whispered, barely audible. The man's shaky knees touched the cold marble floor as he knelt beside her wheelchair, his voice breaking. "Clara, it's me. I've been searching for you for so long." Ethan instinctively stepped back, realizing that this was no coincidence but a moment bound by fate and regret. Clara's eyes flooded with confusion, pain, and longing all at once, her fingers trembling on the armrest. You left when I needed you the most," she said, her voice fragile but edged with hurt. The man, Martin Jennings, bowed his head, his voice raw as he whispered, "I know, and I have no excuse. After your mother died, I lost myself. I thought you were better off without me, but I was wrong. I am so sorry." Tears streamed down his face freely now. Ethan watched quietly, holding Maya's hand gently, sensing the weight of years of silence pressing on father and daughter. Clara's breathing quickened, her emotions warring between anger and a desperate need for love. Ethan stepped forward slightly and spoke softly, "Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about choosing what your heart deserves, peace." Martin looked at Ethan, gratitude shimmering in his eyes. He held Clara's hand gently, almost afraid she'd pull away. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, with a trembling breath, she whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I want to try." Martin nodded, tears falling again. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." Ethan exhaled softly, his heart warming at the fragile thread of hope forming between them. And in that quiet corner of the mall, surrounded by the echo of water and distant footsteps, a broken bond began to mend, slowly, painfully, but beautifully. In the days that followed, the atmosphere around Clara began to change in a way she had never imagined. Martin visited her every day, not with expensive gifts or empty promises, but with quiet presence, helping her move from her wheelchair to the bench by the fountain, bringing her favorite hot chocolate, listening more than he spoke. Ethan and Maya often joined them, creating a space that felt warm, calm, and strangely like home. Clara, who once believed she was invisible to the world, now found herself surrounded by gentle laughter, shared meals, and conversations that didn't revolve around pity, but possibility. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mall's glass ceiling, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and lavender, Martin approached Ethan with a hesitant smile. "You stood up for Clara when I wasn't there," he said quietly. "Let me stand up for you now." He offered Ethan a stable job at his company, better pay, fixed hours, and a future that wouldn't force him to choose between bills and his daughter's happiness. Ethan hesitated, brushing a hand through his hair. "I'm not looking for charity," he said. Martin shook his head. "It's not charity. It's gratitude, and maybe the beginning of something like family." Ethan glanced at Clara, who looked at him with hopeful eyes, then at Maya, who was happily feeding crumbs to the pigeons nearby. His lips curved into a soft smile. "All right, but only if we walk forward as equals." Martin extended his hand, not as a businessman, but as a father trying to rebuild his life. Ethan shook it firmly. That night, as they walked toward the parking lot, Clara whispered, "You didn't just save me that day, you gave me a home I never thought I'd have." Ethan looked at her, his voice gentle. "Maybe family isn't always the one we're born into. Sometimes it's the one we find along the way." And under the fading evening light, three hearts once shattered by loss began to beat in rhythm with hope, forgiveness, and newfound love. In that moment, they were no longer strangers brought together by chance, they were a family crafted by kindness.